Hello there, and welcome along to this, the best of all time. On the 7th of September 1892, the first gloved heavyweight championship of the world was fought out when gentleman Jim Corbett beat the seasoned bare-knuckler John L. Sullivan in the 21st round. Boxing has changed since those days, but one question that over the years has caused more fights outside the ring than in it: who is or was the greatest heavyweight of all time? Lewis or Marciano, Ali or Tyson, not to forget the likes of Dempsey or Johnson, or any of the other greats of the past. And tonight I'm joined by three guests who have the unenviable task of naming the best heavyweight of all time. It's a pleasure to welcome, for 10 rounds of debate, a unanimous decision is the only outcome, I'm afraid. First up, Barry McGuigan, better known in the ring as the Clonus Cyclone in his fighting days, world featherweight champion back in the mid-80s, now part of our own team on Sky Sports. Welcome, Barry. We're also joined by Colin Hart, the boxing correspondent of The Sun, who's witnessed most of the biggest fights in the world over the past 3 decades and more. Great to be with you, Colin. And by Reg Gutteridge, one of the best-known commentators from the age of television and radio. And between them, these boys know all there is to know about boxing. Why don't we start by going through some of the contenders? As we do that, we're obviously going to pick out some great fights from previous eras as well. But Colin, one thought: we've all witnessed one of the high points of this sporting year in Las Vegas, the meeting of Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield, and the incredible show business razzmatazz that surrounds a big fight in the United States. But you've reminded me that this is nothing new in boxing, going way back into the last century.
Absolutely. I mean, the World Heavyweight Championship has always been known as the richest prize in sport, and the World Heavyweight Champion, from whatever era you care to name, has always been one of the most recognisable people on earth, known worldwide. It has that charisma to it, and there's been some wonderful examples. As you say, Gene Tunney, Jack Dempsey, Jack Johnson, Joe Louis, Rocky Marciano, you could go on and on and on, covering the whole century. There have been 1 or 2 heavyweight champions, of course, who are not very well known or remembered. People like Jack Sharkey. Max Schmeling was famous for the Lewis fight, not for the fact that he won and is the only world heavyweight champion to win the title on a disqualification. As
theatrical events, has heavyweight boxing always given us one of the most dramatic events in sport?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you remember going back in history, the first $1 Million Gate was when Jack Dempsey fought Georges Carpentier.
That was a lot of money.
It's the first $1 Million Gate. I mean, never been known before in the history of the world. And going back even further, when Tex Rickard, the famous American promoter, he was the one, I suppose, who brought the World Heavyweight Championship into world recognition. Every corner of the earth knew that there was a World Heavyweight Championship taking place. Everybody wanted to know the result. And it was Tex Rickard, through Jack Dempsey, who gave the title perhaps the first hint of glamour that it's maintained throughout the years.
I guess even before the age of radio and television, the great message, a medium for these stories, was the newspaper.
Yes, the Telegraph, in fact, where they used to tap out the results and the report of the fight in Morse code, as it happened when, I believe, Fitzsimmons beat Corbett for the title in Carson City. I can't remember the year, but it was before World War I.
Reg?
They still kept that Morse code going even to the 50s, because the fight I did in Chicago with Ray Robinson and Carmen Basilio, they'd only just stopped using them. In fact, one Western Union operator was still using them. And the newspaper fellows, we had what was then called telex, but at least you could sort of look over, and this single tape came out those days, and you could see what you'd written. But with that Morse code, you were just hoping this guy was doing what you had written and it would appear in the paper, not, my way and not his way.
Television and before that radio must have done so much to spread the popularity.
Oh, absolutely. I think radio, I mean, they still talk of the Tommy Farr and Joe Louis, or Louis as we call him over here, fight. I mean, everybody would tell you, I listened to that on my crystal set, and all the miners in Wales, everybody had a day off, none of the night shift were working, Media has played a vital part, actually, in it.
James J. Corbett is the man that we start with, Barry, from the turn of the century. What do we know about him?
Well, he was the first real boxer. Before that, we had John L. Sullivan, who was a strong, robust, big, heavy-handed guy and would bludgeon you to the floor. James J. Corbett was the first sort of fancy Dan, as it were, a beautiful boxer and a good mover. He didn't move that much because they couldn't in many of the days. The rings weren't great, but he was very mobile, and he used his boxing ability to frustrate and outbox and wear down the aging John L. Sullivan.
You know what I think? I think Errol Flynn might have beaten him. I mean, Errol Flynn took his part in the film, and from looking at these crotchety old films, and I do make allowances for that, we get a different conception of a fight sometimes with those black and white flickeries. But I wasn't very impressed with Corbett from that point of the film, and I think old Errol might have had a shot with him.
Tell me this, Reg, why did we move away from bare-knuckle fighting to gloves? Was this for reasons of good taste or safety?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I mean, they had to bring gloves in there. I mean, they're still trying to alter things to this moment, aren't they? Something else has got to be introduced, heavier gloves and so forth. Yeah, I think there's a question of law at the time.
To make it more civilized, I suppose, because the funny thing is, you know, if we really sort of get into the technicalities of it, and I don't want to do that at this stage, this is not what this program's about. In actual fact, when they couldn't wear gloves, they couldn't hit as hard, because it would hurt their hands, and therefore they couldn't punch as hard. So they introduced gloves to make the fellas' faces less marked up, but it also allowed guys to hit harder.
You know, when you think that when gloves first came in, they were 2 ounces and 4 ounces. Now they're 10 ounces for heavyweights. Now, could you imagine punchers like Joe Frazier, George Foreman, Mike Tyson, Joe Lewis wearing 2 or 4 ounce gloves? Do you imagine the damage that those guys would have done? And the other thing is, Colin, that they used to use horsehair. They didn't bring foam gloves in until the late 60s, early 70s. They used to use horsehair, and in fact in some countries they still use them, a combination of horsehair and foam gloves.
Barry, those horsehair gloves were used in the '63 fight with then Cassius Clay and Henry Cooper. They were horsehair gloves, and the tear that we all talked about was actually on the thumb of the stitching had come out, and there are pictures out, Monte Fresco took it actually, of the hair flying out in the round before they tried to change it. In fact, it was never changed. But you're quite right. I remember very well as a kid, because all my family were involved in boxing, instructors and everything. And they'd come home and I'd always be trying to break up the hair gloves for them and make them a bit softer for the fight. That was the cheating going on.
Yeah.
Can we go back to the Corbett? When he lost the title, which was to it's a tenuous link with Britain, of course, Bob Fitzsimmons in Carson City. That fight was famous also because a new punch was introduced into boxing by a newspaper man. I think it was
you, wasn't it, Colin?
Well, it wasn't. It was there all the time.
It sounds like some story.
Barry was reminding me that it was Fitzsimmons' wife who yelled out to Bob, "Hit him in the slats, Bob," and she meant hit him in the body, and he did. I think it was the 14th round. He hit him with a body shot, and all the air went out of Corbett, and he sank to his knees and was counted out. And the newspaper man invented the punch. He called it the solar plexus punch, which hadn't been heard of before then. And of course it became part of boxing law. Right. When people got knocked out with a body punch, became known as, it was the Fitzsimmons solar plexus punch.
Now, Colin, we know you weren't around on the 17th of March, 1897, when this did happen. When Bob Fitzsimmons captured this world title, how much impact did that have in Britain at the time?
I don't think it had a great deal of impact in Britain at all. I mean, don't forget, Bob Fitzsimmons was born in Cornwall. I think it was Helston, wasn't it?
Helston, yeah.
And then he went to New Zealand as a very young child. And when he won the world heavyweight title, despite what we think, he was an American citizen.
He was an American citizen, that's right.
So the link with Britain was tenuous. It was only years later, when we were striving to find a man to win the world heavyweight title, that we claimed Bob Fitzsimmons. But I don't think it had any impact in Britain, particularly the fact that he was born in Cornwall at that time.
And people forget too, Colin, that he just didn't win the heavyweight title. He never weighed more than 165 pounds. And when he won the title, he actually weighed 168. He won the heavyweight title, and he went and won the middleweight title and the light heavyweight title as well. So he was quite an incredible fighter.
But at that weight today, Barry, he wouldn't have won a round, let's face it. These fellas have been much too big for him and throw too many punches
But to be fair, Reg,
he was a bit of a statue.
In those days, the men weren't that big. I mean, people don't realise that Jack Dempsey, when he won the world title, was only 13 stone 3.
That's right.
And going into the 50s, Marciano, when he won the night he won the title, weighed 13 stone 2.
Our Henry's best weight was 13.5.
Yeah, 35,
He'd have been a cruiserweight.
But it's interesting.
Even a light cruiserweight.
Absolutely.
It's interesting now that we have the 21st century heavyweights, guys that weigh 17, 18 stone. But to my mind, I don't know how you feel about it, Muhammad was 15'7", 15'10", never weighed more than that. Tyson was 15'7", 15'10", and Holyfield 15'5". So, you know,
Well,
is that the best weight division?
Well,
or is
I
that
would
the
have
best
thought
weight
so.
in the heavyweight
They're
division?
very mobile, aren't they, all those you've
Yeah.
mentioned? I mean, mobile fighters.
I mean,
I can't get
Ali,
over the
when
size
he beat,
of these guys
yeah,
now.
when he beat Lister